All right, we are live. Did that weird video just play? I have no idea. I just decided to click it without ever having seen it before. So hopefully that was like a 30-second countdown. I have no idea if it actually played or not. It was very cheesy music. We're here a little late. Yes, it is 10 past. Sorry about that. I've been rushing around trying to get everything ready. I'm sweating like Lewis Goodall. Why is he always sweating whenever he says anything? He
Well,
comes
when you're
up, he's
talking nonsense, you know, you've got to.
It
takes a lot to keep control, doesn't it?
He was in Las Vegas. I was like, okay, he's sweating because he's in Las Vegas. But then he's sweating in England at LBC in his usual studio. I'm like, Lewis. And I hate attacking people's looks and things. But basically, I was on Lotus Eaters and they kind of broke the seal of that for me. And I just thought, okay, well, let's go for him then with the sweat. But I'm sweating. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm good, thanks. I am good. I was working with Jonathan Liss on GB News last night. Jonathan Liss is one of the lefties on there. And he was telling me he's good mates with Lewis Goodall. And I said,
I can well imagine.
And yes, the only question I asked is he aware that he's gay? And he's not aware that he's gay because he's actually married a woman. So, you know, at some point, Lewis will figure that out, I'm sure.
Yeah, and we certainly don't want to slander anyone here. That's purely satirical content. Lewis is one of the straightest guys I've ever met. I know because he didn't fancy me. Just made that up. Let's go with that. So let's go with quasi-homophobia to kick off with. So this is an experiment. As you know, this is Dixon Cox. We've done it so many times, but we've never done it live. And I noticed Paul today put a reference on Twitter, and it's live, which I think was a reference to Martin Tyler, which may not be our demographic, but it's very much Paul's demographic. It's football. It is actually my demographic. But so we're live and we're going to try it. Now, normally we do an extra bit for the paywalled legends on nickdixon.net. We can't do that. I can't really see how to do that because this is live and free. So you're all very lucky. You're getting a special taster of what we do every week for the legends on nickdixon.net. If you want to stick in super chats, we'll read them out at the end if you have any questions, but we're not going to beg for them. Our main guy is Nigel, who gives it the most super chats. He informed me he won't be here tonight. I was like, I was thinking, I've just done this whole blooming thing for you. Where are you? Nigel said, do lives after 7, and I'll give you super chats. So I thought, brilliant, let's do a live at 7, and he's not blooming here. Anyway, has some kind of life or something. So what we're going to do today is normal Dixon Cox, but live, and we're going to go through some of the massive stories. Now, the Ricky Jones story was massive. It's getting a little old, but we're going to add, of course, our brilliant fresh spin to it. And we're going to go through the arguments of the Ricky Jones versus Lucy Connolly case. And I'm going to put out all my arguments on that. And we're going to react to some videos. Then we're going to do the flag raising trend that's cropping up all around this great nation. And we're going to be talking about why these flags are suddenly popping up and what different reactions are. We'll look at the Candy Andrews ridiculous video and so on. And then we'll do this Epping hotel that has just closed down. Actual pressure has worked, even though it's probably mainly about planning permission. So lots of very interesting stories, Paul. Do you want to crack on? What do you think?
Yeah, I like the idea. I like the idea of cracking on. Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the comments making me laugh. That was all. People like the People's Gammon in capital letters. People do like to shout this at me.
Yeah, People's Gammon is here, and we want to, and he's going to go the whole hog, which is a show I've suggested he'd probably nick that. I will
definitely nick that idea at some point, Nick.
Yeah,
for sure.
Welcome to the whole hog. You won't say it like that, but all right. Well, let's have a look. If I can work the technology, of course, which is always a question. We'll have a look at this Ricky Jones video, and it's a famous video. This is a slightly different angle on it, as in literally a different angle that I haven't seen. And we'll see what he said for those that may have need their memories refreshing, which I'm sure you don't. But let me see if I can get this working. So there he is, and let's play.
They are disgusting, nasty. Talk your truth. Talk we need to hold it roast. Yes. I just want to say thank you all. I'm going to leave it there. Free. Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Thank you, God bless you all.
That's basically it. I mean, if you missed it, he said.
He
goes on.
Children.
It's a boring long speech. Then he goes on.
Yes. They are disgusting, nasty. Talk your truth. Talk we need to hold it roast.
So there you go, disgusting Nazi fascists, and we need to cut all their throats. I mean, Roy did a great thumbnail involving that phrase, and I thought, I don't think we can even put that on YouTube. But strangely, you can say it on the street.
Oh, no, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's just fine, apparently, in a crowd of people. So if you want to talk about incitement, and we'll get on to, of course, the difference with a jury trial and why they decided that it was not guilty. But even if you're talking about the American First Amendment, you know, they talk about fighting words. There are things like proximity. He's there with a crowd of people pretty much saying, do violent stuff. You know, I'm not the jury, I'm not the judge. You know, to the layman, that looks a little bit incity, I will say. But it was not guilty, judged by the jury. Okay, fine. I mean, what did you think about that, Paul, before we move on?
Well, look, if it looks a bit incity. I mean, you know, the judicial system is something we'll get onto, I'm sure. But let's just look at it on face value. If you are going to incite something, there's no better way to do it than in front of a group of people with a microphone. And if you're in front of said group of people, they're all G'd up and waiting for you to speak. And during that speech, you ask them, you point out who you believe your enemy is, and send them on their merry way to go and slit their throats. Then I don't know what else you're asking them to do. It's not really a metaphor, is it? You don't. It's not the sort of thing you heard your nan say. You know, have a good day at school. Don't forget to slit the throats when you're there. No one ever. It wasn't a turn of phrase at all, was it? So it's not like you can disguise it. Everyone's. I mean, just look at the placards. Smash fascism and racism. No.
Yeah, very neatly
you're
printed.
Not doing that. You're just this is utterly ridiculous. I mean, this guy, right? If you change his skin color, you'd say that was a far right thug. You know, the parts of our media would say that was a far-right thug. He's got the haircut, he's got the goatee beard, can't speak very well.
Got the
polo shirt. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the sort of people who adore me. But it's just
our audience. It's our audience.
It's our audience. Yeah,
so, Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the sort. But the only thing that differentiates him is his skin color, and we've made identity and skin color so incredibly important, which it's not. That it gives in some aspects, it gives him a free pass. Now, there is no way that anybody can condone what he said. The only difference between what he said and what someone like Lucy Connolly did is that he said it in front of a group of people that were cheering him on. She made a statement and deleted it very quickly. Okay, that was the only two differences. The outcomes were obviously very different. We'll cover that, and I've got a pretty good theory to why the outcomes were different. But this is out and out incitement. There's no two ways about it. I mean,
legally, you have to say it's been deemed it's not.
Of course. So what it is acceptable incitement, isn't it?
Well,
acceptable incitement.
But you have got the argument, of course, that a jury, and we'll get onto this, the argument that a jury, they don't really want to convict people. And you've got the argument that a jury probably wouldn't have convicted Lucy Connolly. But let's get into it in stages, because I wanted to share this. And here's where the so-called right, or the kind of soft right, like the Tories, which, well, really the woke left, aren't they? But a few of them are okay. Here's where they went wrong. So Chris Philp here, if we can see that, he says it's astonishing that Labour councillor Ricky Jones, who was caught on video calling for throats to be slit, is let off scot-free, whereas Lucy Connolly got 31 months prison for posting something no worse. The development of two-tier justice is becoming increasingly alarming. It cannot have been a question of uncertain evidence, as Jones was on video clearly calling for violence. The government must come forward with plans to ensure justice is handed out equally, regardless of the background or views of the perpetrator. But as far as I can see, this Labour government seems to be quite happy with two-tier justice. Now, the problem with this, and there's many similar posts, it doesn't really make any sense. What do you want? Do you want the government to step in and have plans to have equal justice? It doesn't make any sense, because we have jury trials, and jury trials probably are a good thing. We can get onto the flaws in them in a minute, but they're basically a good thing. And this is a bit of a strange argument from Phil, because it just opens you up to obvious criticism that, no, this was a jury trial. Lucy Connolly's wasn't. The key thing to get into is why Lucy Connolly's wasn't. But he's completely missed that, and he's gone with this fairly kind of non sequitur argument. And that leaves people like even as ridiculous as Anna Soubry to be able to come in. And I always think her account looks like a parody, so I can never tell. And she replies to him and says, you were never the sharpest tool in the Conservative toolbox, but this goes beyond ignorance. A jury acquitted him. You know the difference between someone pleading guilty and a jury delivering a not guilty verdict. You're fishing for votes at the bottom of the political pond, etc., etc. So this is the problem. It was not a smart argument to use, and it just opened you up to that, because, yes, he was granted a jury trial, but she wasn't. So the key part that was two-tier, right, was why wasn't she granted that? And I can move on, but I'll let you say something, Paul. I don't want to hog the.
I don't want. Basically, all I want to say about this is that I'm not a fan of the nanny state. I'm not a fan of government overreach, and I wouldn't want the government anywhere near the judiciary. It's all over the judiciary like a flannel round your knob in the shower. It's outrageous, and we.
You suddenly got really loud there. Can you try and stay like brutally still, like you've just been in an accident?
I can't stand brutally still, especially if I'm going to say things like.
I don't know why you got so loud there. Maybe it's probably the knob got you excited.
Yeah, the knob got me excited. On Dixon
can
Cox.
Happen.
It can. Occasionally, the knob can get excited. Yeah, I want smaller government than we currently have, and that means having the government nowhere near the judiciary. So the argument is nonsensical in the sense that it shouldn't be the case. There are massive distinctions between what happened to Ricky Jones and what happened to Lucy Connolly. And we'll get on to that. But just to give a flavour of that, she negated any of the judiciary system by pleading guilty. Why she pleaded guilty is much more interesting, and we'll get on to that in a bit. The reason that Ricky Jones is walking the streets today, free to chant whatever he likes, is because he did the right thing, which was to plead not guilty. And therefore was given a lot of time and kind of took the government out of the process. Lucy Connolly essentially involved the government and was part of this whole kangaroo court system where, right now we can't do anything. We can't do anything within the judiciary system within 12 months. But for about a week in the summer of 2024, you could get arrested, charged, convicted and sentenced in the same week.
It was like a Craig David song. You could get charged on Monday. You get, arrested on Monday, charged on Tuesday, slammed in the slammer by Wednesday. Keir Starmer's going on about you in a speech how amazing it is by Thursday. Yeah, that's where it was, wasn't it? Incredible efficiency. Let's see what Jacob Rees-Mogg said, because he also made a mistake, in my humble opinion. He said, this is self-evidently not an example of two-tier justice, as this counsellor was cleared by a jury. Lucy Connolly offered a guilty plea, so did not have a jury trial, although she probably could have done had she pleaded not guilty. So, yes, okay, Jacob, but the question is, why did she not do that? Let's have a look. The problem is here, Mogg, in his obsession with the rule of law, of course, rule of law was a great thing, but the Tories are still living in this world where we have, Queensberry rules, rule of law. Let's observe the rule of law. It's like, yes, but we don't have that anymore. We have a government that's playing friend-enemy politics. That's basically, if you're on the side of the regime, lo and behold, things go well for you. If you're not, they don't. And we don't have this. Daniel Hannan made a similar point. He was like, I believe in rule of law. I don't like mobs. And I replied to him, we both had 1,000 likes, almost ratioed him. I replied to him, I've said this somewhere, but I replied saying, look, we don't have rule of law. The options are, basically the government is persecuting people. We don't really, what he called a mob was basically people protesting against an unfair system. So rule of law was not even in there. But anyway, I don't want to mangle my own tweet, but so you got people like Nazir Afzal here who end up agreeing with Jacob Rees-Mogg. He says Ricky Jones was charged, pleaded not guilty, and was prosecuted before a jury of 12 randomly selected British strangers and found not guilty. Others pleaded guilty and were sentenced accordingly. They too could have elected jury trial. There's nothing two-tier about it. So it's very strange that you have Mogg making the same argument as the likes of Afzal. And the key really is in this. Here's a Spectator piece from Laurie Wastel, who's been a guest on my podcast, and I'll stop rambling in a minute, Paul. But he says here, I don't know if you can read it, in the most crucial part of the expose, meaning Alison Pearson's piece, Connelly says she was influenced to plead guilty as a result of being held on remand behind bars, struggling to speak to a solicitor with the trial date potentially months away. Lucy became panicked and demoralized. A guilty plea looked like the fastest way to put this nightmare behind her. She pleaded guilty in the knowledge she would get a discount on her sentence, expecting to be out by Christmas. So she was pressured in a way that it seems like Ricky Jones wasn't, and she was held. She wasn't given bail. So why the difference? And was it that at the time there was political pressure to do this kind of thing? Well, let's just quickly remind ourselves of Starmer's speech at the time.
I utterly condemn the far-right thuggery we've seen this weekend. Be in no doubt, those that have participated in this violence will face the full force of the law. The police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves.
Now that is key. So whether directly or those whipping up this online, and by that people like Lucy Connolly could come into that. So isn't it fairly reasonable to say there was an atmosphere here created by the government of we're going to get these people, as you say, Paul, very efficiently, even if they were so-called whipping it up online, and under that guidance and under that leadership of Keir Starmer, Lucy Connolly was pressured. So look, they're going hard on this. Just plead guilty, and that'll be the best you can do. Does look an awful lot like that, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You can argue till the cows come home, and there is a fair amount of nuance to this two-tier argument. You can argue till the cows come home whether this is two-tier or not. It's two. If you look at it, if you're Anna Soubry and you look at it as reductively as one pleaded guilty and one didn't, one went in front of a jury and one didn't, it's easy to dismiss the argument. You haven't argued, you haven't had a successful debate, but you just dismissed it and said, no, you're wrong. Because we all ostensibly believe that our judicial system is fair, and therefore if Ricky Jones has been tried in front of 12 of his peers and found to be not guilty, then the case is closed. And to some degree, that's correct. The two-tier element comes in right at the beginning. Right at the beginning, when Lucy Connolly is being advised. She is being advised to plead guilty, not knowing, and we don't know, I don't know if her barrister, her solicitor was knowing either. So this is my opinion. Not knowing at that point and doing so is essentially the death knell for her. You imagine if you're someone who's never really been in trouble before, you've never been remanded in custody, you're thinking, this looks like my future. I don't want any of this. I want to get out of here as soon as possible. The best case scenario for me, I'm being told, is that if I plead guilty, I might spend 3 months in here. Just hold that for a sec. 3 months in prison for a tweet was your best case scenario at that point in our head. In no place in Western democratized society should anybody ever feel the threat of being incarcerated for longer than nanoseconds for a tweet.
No, there shouldn't be. It shouldn't even be nanoseconds. That's the other point, as you say. She should never have been in the first place.
So before I continue with my point, at no point should Lucy Connolly have A, been arrested, B, been on remand, C, faced any charges, or D, be trying to figure out what's the best way to get out of here, and is that 3 months, is that 4 months, I need to get out. So this is the two-tier part of the system, not the judiciary part of it. Once you plead not guilty, then under normal circumstances, like in Ricky Jones's case, you're free to roam. And I'll come back to that in a minute because the piece about bail is really important as well. You're free to roam, and then you can build your case. Okay. And Ricky Jones's case getting delayed. He had a year to build his case. He pleaded not guilty, had a year.
Looks like Paul's had a slight internet issue there. This is always the problem with Paul's. We've never managed to get his house where he doesn't have internet issues. No matter what he does, it's quite incredible. He can dig up half the road, and it doesn't ever seem to work. Let me just bring up what I was going to carry on with, and we'll see if we can get Paul back in a sec. So where I was up to, we were talking about Starmer and his absurd speech, and then I was going to get on to this piece. It's quite hard when I could do this solo, but not when Paul suddenly disappears. So, all right, let's see if we can get him back. Don't know where he's gone though. Anyway, it was an experiment doing it live. What I was going to get onto was, while we try and get Paul back, was the this jury of your peers thing, if that even applies anymore. And Morgoth had a good tweet here. What does a jury of your peers mean in a multicultural society? So obviously, it's probably better to get a jury trial, as we've been discussing, than obviously what happened to Lucy Connolly. But in this society, it's so divided, and as he says, multicultural, also just highly politicized, where everyone's a political actor. it's incredibly hard to imagine getting a kind of totally neutral jury. So even though jury is still better, one wonders if there's ever such thing now as a completely fair jury. And I'm just trying to see if I can bring. Let's just see if we can get Paul back in. Should be the same link, so he should just be able to come back in. But let's see. Maybe his internet's down. Oh well, I've been trying. It's quite amazing trying to get people to have good internet. It's you think like people in media, right? They'd all have good internet. None of them do. It's incredibly difficult. It's like everyone I interview, hardly anyone has decent internet. You'd be absolutely amazed. Hang on, Paul Cox has entered. Okay, let's add him again. All right, he's back. What happened there, Paul?
No idea. It wasn't internet related anyway. So, okay, are we back?
Yeah, you should be back. But
I knew it was working because I can see the stream on my phone down there.
All right.
So with regards to Ricky Jones, yeah, he managed to extricate himself from the two-tier part of the process. Lucy Connolly was unable to. She was trapped within this sort of void that had been created by that very speech from Keir Starmer, by the way. Keir Starmer, under no circumstances should any Prime Minister be able to stand in front of a lectern and dictate how the judicial system will work in that any given week. It wasn't exceptional circumstances. We weren't at war. People were just upset. There was a protest, a riot, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so there's where the two-tier part of this comes in. Lucy was caught in this whole storm over here. Ricky Jones, for whatever reason, was extricated from that and able to follow the full process, and therefore, by able to do that, was able to plead not guilty, spend a year waiting successfully, and they only spent seconds, I think, maybe a few minutes. Deliberating the verdict for Ricky Jones. So that jury were very, very certain he was not guilty. Okay. Now that leans into free speech, and I'm all for free speech. I'm not a free speech absolutist, I don't think, but I'm 100% a free speech advocate. Now, back to Lucy. What's weird about Lucy Connolly is that I learned from Free Speech Nation this week, or working on Free Speech Nation at GB News, and I had two barristers on there debating. And one barrister said, you always get two passes at bail. So you can try for bail, and then somebody turns it down, you can try again. It would suggest that either, and we don't know this, I don't know this, that she was not given bail twice, a mother who caused no threat. So there's only one or two reasons why you're never given bail. You're a threat to the victims of the crime, not true, or true. But this is a woman that had young.
Paul, you just left again and came back. So can you stop doing whatever you just did there? Because you keep leaving, coming back. Are you hitting something?
Really?
Or doing something?
No,
yeah.
Nothing.
You left for a second and came back. Yeah. Okay.
No, so sorry, I didn't even notice that. Oh, this is terrible. So what's the last thing you heard me say?
Oh, it was very brief. It was very brief. Go on.
So yeah, so there are two. You get two passes at bail. And there are very few reasons why you won't be given bail. One is that you're a threat to the victim, which she's not. And one is that you're a flea risk, which she's not, because she's a young mother, a young family. They're not just going to disappear. It's not possible for them to do so. So something was operating differently at that point in time. And I think that's why that press conference and Keir Starmer stood in front of that lectern is incredibly important. And mate, I don't know this for sure now, but history, I think, will tell us that he was able to influence the judiciary system. And there is the two-tier aspect of this. And there is a very, very, very unfair circumstance. So Ricky Jones was not part of that. Lucy Connolly was. Both of them said and did things that people wouldn't like, that could be considered incitement in some way. Let's just say, I'm not giving a personal opinion on either of those. I'm just saying it could be. There was very, very little difference between what was said and what was done in their cases. But the way they were treated very early on, the way that she didn't have access to solicitors and barristers in the way that Ricky Jones would have done. Well, we know this because the Free Speech Union tried at that time to contact Lucy Connolly. Had she been a member and had they been able to contact her, they would have advised her immediately to plead not guilty, even if that meant keeping her on remand. They would have advised her not to, because she would have had a much greater chance of getting out.
Absolutely.
But for whatever reason, she was encouraged to plead guilty, because she was in this huge storm created by that press conference from Keir Starmer. So that's where the two-tier is. Really, it's not that huge piece about once you're in the system and you go in front, you haven't pleaded guilty and you go in front of a jury, etc. No one's saying that that's the part that's two-tier.
She shouldn't have been charged anyway. And then when she was denied bail. She seemed to be pressured and influenced. She certainly felt that way. I've had some slimy lawyers reply to me saying, she knew exactly what she was doing. She was following instruction, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, actually, she has said she was influenced and felt under pressure. So, now you're claiming to read her mind. So that's what Lucy said. And you know what? Do you know what's the tragedy behind it as well? I say tragedy. I just mean where we are as a country. Let's be honest. Maybe I shouldn't even say this in some ways, but let's be honest. Even though we have the best case here, and we absolutely do, I think being objective, I say we, like our side sort of thing, the people we're more sympathetic with, has the best case. Even if we didn't, the country's just so divided now. It's pretty clear that Lucy Connolly is basically our person because she's a pissed off, ordinary, law-abiding person, never done anything wrong in her life, who's suddenly gone, do you know what, I've had enough. And, and she's so angry with, like so many people are, and we'll get into it with the asylum hotels, so-called migrant hotels. She's so angry and she's snapped. And she's not even that political. Yes, she's married to a councillor, but she's not even like a political person. So she's our person, which is basically a pissed off, ordinary person who's just had enough about the absurdity of the migrants and migrant crime and being put at the back of the queue if you're a normal law-abiding person, and anarcho-tyranny and so on, and immigration and the state of that. And then Ricky Jones is very much their person. Why? Because he's an activist, been an activist for a long time, Labour councillor. Even in his speech there, he waffles on about his history of activism, and he thinks everything's a national front because that's what it used to be. And so he's very, and then he starts chanting "Free, free Palestine." So he's there, guys. So it's just so clear. And this is where actually people like Rees-Mogg and other Tories and people have made a mistake, because I'm not asking them to drop their principles. I'm not asking them to just see things in brutal friend-enemy terms, although it wouldn't be a terrible idea. But I'm not even asking them to do that, because actually we do have the winning case here. But they're so like, oh, rule of law. They're just so, you didn't have to look hard to see. No, it wasn't a jury trial. It was, she never got to a jury trial. Why? Because she was pressured. Why? Because of the prevailing mood, because of Starmer, and because she felt influenced into it and was kept on remand, and so on. That's not hard to get to. So the fact that people like Mogg can't even get to that, it shows that they just don't know what's going on. But I have to say, there's a cynical reality behind it, even if we do have to have a good case and we are principled. But it's just so interesting to me that these two characters are they're kind of perfect, aren't they? A mother, ordinary English mother who's pissed off, versus the activist guy, Free Palestine, cut their throats, who gets let off. So it is perfect, really. The activist getting let off by the system that agrees with him tacitly. The innocent mother hated by the system, which hates British people, native Brits who are innocent. It's just kind of a perfect example of where we are. And while you were away, Paul, and you're in the desert of the real, lost in the fortress of solitude, we had a quick look at this Morgoth tweet, just because, yes, juries are better than what happened to Lucy. But he also said, what does a jury of your peers mean in a multicultural society, quoting Rees-Mogg's tweet and replying to it. And I think it's a good point, is that we're in this society now. I said when you were away, it's multicultural. There are different sort of groups warring with each other. Also, everyone's politicized and everyone's divided. So how are you going to get this jury that's completely impartial? Very unlikely. They're going to look at the thing and have a side already, almost certainly. Having said that, I do think there's this residual sort of sense of fair play in many people still in this country, where they probably would have let off Jones and Lucy Connolly. But you do think, like, you walk in there, if someone's, imagine it's me and someone, or you, and they've seen us on GB News, or they just have an idea about us, or they're activists and who haven't admitted they are to get into the jury. We've seen it in America, all these people. Then you find out they've written 18 million tweets saying Trump is a Nazi. You know what I mean? So is a jury of your peers really your peers anymore, is what he's asking there.
It's a really good point. And, in the old days, really old days, they would move, and they have in recent times, to be fair, they would move a trial where people were completely aware of it or immersed in it or engaged in it, either positive or negatively, away from that town, from that county even, so that the people were completely unaware. Now you can never be completely unaware. every jury has access to social media. Every jury has access to the internet. Now, it doesn't matter if during the period of the trial they're not looking at social media. It's the horse is well bolted by that point. If you've been engaged in social media up to that point, you would have known what went on in Southport. You would have known the type of thing that Lucy would have said, even if you didn't know exactly. You would have formed an opinion on it. It would have been based on whatever your echo chamber were telling you. You wouldn't be looking at it impartially. You'd be looking at it based on your particular personal views. It works the other way around, doesn't it? You and I sat on Ricky Jones's jury. We might think differently. I'm not unaware of that. We're having a debate the whole time. It's a political debate divided by our opinion.
But we would be fair because we're good people.
Do you know what, though? I was about to say, I would be fair. And there's a reason that Ricky Jones got off, is because it would have been very, very difficult to convict him in the same way Lucy Connolly would have got off, incredibly difficult to convict them. You have to understand intent, which you can never prove. We have free speech in this country, or, we did do. I genuinely believe the Lucy Connolly case proves that we don't. Because of that moment in time, because of what happened in those few weeks around Southport, because of what Keir Starmer stood up and said, because of what happened to Lucy Connolly, we lost our free speech podium position. We absolutely did at that point. And history
we've got
will
a long,
show that.
proud history we've got a long, proud history of free speech, Mr. President. I think I've got a proud history.
I mean, free their sausages. The man is impotent when it comes to almost everything. And it's just very unfortunate. However, it's incredibly sinister what happened at that point. Incredibly sinister.
He got off lightly, didn't he, in that meeting? Trump should have been, there's a woman, great woman, beautiful woman called Lucy Connolly, folks. We call her Lucy. Great woman, mother. And she wrote one bad tweet. We've all done a bad tweet. I've done some tweets. 3 in the morning. You've seen the tweets. I don't tweet anymore. We do truth. It's called Truth Social, folks. We do Truth Social. We do truths now. They're truths. But they used to be tweets. And some of them were not perfect tweets. And Lucy, she did a bad tweet. And they said, go to jail. And it was tragic. Totally tragic. She went to jail and there was no jury. And then Starmer says it's free speech. Don't you think that would have been so good if it had hit Starmer with that?
God. Yes. And nothing would have stopped him. He just didn't think of that in the moment. He wouldn't be thinking, I better not say anything. That's not really his style at all. And, she'll be made a heroine, Lucy Connolly, and she'll have a hell of a 6 months when she comes out of prison. And I'm not sure how I feel about that entirely either, because we don't know everything. But she will deserve, I hope one thing that does come out of it is that she's able to get back on her feet again, and that through the publicity, she's financially recompensed, which means she's able to support her family. I don't know the situation. Obviously, I believe she was married. They did lose a child. They had a daughter. They're still alive. So there is a partner, a husband, whatever, that's been at home this whole time, having to keep all that together. A child that's been wondering where the hell her mother is, probably only able to visit her in prison, maybe telephone calls here or a Zoom call there. All because of a tweet, all because of speech, okay? Of which no
was
harm.
deleted very, very soon after,
very
in the heat of the moment.
And nothing that she said caused any harm.
And she said the crucial phrase, "for all I care," which he didn't say, and which some people have been known to say from time to time, "for all I care."
I mean, some even really clever, good-looking people have actually said it live on telly. And
reckless people.
Recklessly live on telly. And then it was clipped up and put recklessly onto the internet.
Then recklessly taken down.
Taken down.
Well, that was the least reckless bit. Yeah, who would that be? We don't know.
No.
Send a chat if you know who that was. No, you're right, Paul. By the way, she's a hero, and I want to see. I could probably take this tweet down for now. I want to see that edit. These kind of mad Twitter edits you get of like crazy music and stuff. I just want to see Lucy Connolly, and it'll just be "When a hero comes along." Or would you prefer "Search for the hero inside yourself"? And it's just Lucy. Do you remember? People.
Yeah, of course I remember.
Heather Small. Heather Small solo on that? I think it might have been a solo offering.
It might have been.
Search for the hero. She's got a funny voice. Very powerful voice.
A bit Keir Starmer, actually.
Yeah. Starmer duetting. Someone needs to make that AI.
That's
edit.
very unfair on Heather because she's a brilliant singer. I don't know her personally.
Great singer, great person.
Great singer.
And I'm now just trying to find one more tweet on this jury thing. It's actually quite hard to find them when you've got loads lined up. I don't know. They need to look at this. I've got so many things lined up here. It's this one, I believe. Let's see if hopefully it's not my private stuff. Yeah. Here we go.
Imagine.
Lawrence Fox.
Scary dwarfs.
I just started out saying Lawrence Fox like Trump there, but without the accent. I just went Lawrence Fox. Lawrence Fox. They call him Lawrence Fox. Laza. We call him Laza. 50% of the jury pool who cleared the slit everyone's throat man aren't even British. They have it, chaps. Sleep well. And what's quite funny here was this bloke replied to it, and it was. I looked at his other tweets, and he was a classic kind of, take down the right kind of bloke. But
it's not his photo, by the way. Guaranteed.
No, epic fail. Hey, Grok, can non-British people be on a jury in the UK? Thinking that it'd say no.
Yeah.
Grok said, yes, non-British citizens can serve on juries in the UK if aged 18 to 75, basically everyone, on the electoral register and resident in the UK for at least 5 years since age 13. Eligibility is based on residency and voter registration, not citizenship. And I said, oh dear. By oh dear, I meant both that guy getting kind of owned and also the situation. And it got 11,000 likes, so people resonated with that. That is quite shocking, isn't it? So you talk about this jury of your peers, like, no, it's just a load of blokes off the bus, off the boat.
Yeah,
can I be the jury? You can't speak English and you've just arrived here. Yeah, but I want to condemn a man. Appalling. It's appalling.
It is appalling, and it's. I use the word again. Incredibly sinister. What's happened to Lucy Connolly. And she will have her moment. I believe, from what I understand, that she'll be out within weeks now. And it's been known for some time, certainly in media circles, that she's likely to be out around September. So she'll be out soon. Be very interesting to see who wants to interview her. I guarantee she'll appear on GB News. I guarantee she will.
Appear? She'll have a show, mate. That's what they all say.
I'll be on the.
That's all
I'll
the
be on the
lefties
lay
say.
edition with Lucy Connolly.
Yeah. All the lefties always say, "Oh, straight to a show on GB News." But it would be funny if she said, "I'm Lucy Connolly. You may know me from my online output, but welcome to GB News. Let's get your views, and let's go to the people scamming." You're like, "You're absolutely right, Lucy. For all I care." She's like, "Shut up." And she's doing she's doing that, which looks like cutting through it. It's like, don't do that gesture. What a nightmare.
Just me again. You're aware of this. You work in TV yourself, and it's not really a done thing to get selfies. The only person I've ever got a selfie with in a TV studio or within the offices of a TV studio is John Cleese, because I just wasn't going to miss the opportunity. An absolute legend.
One I've got that I was that I was kind of cajoled.
Yes.
That haunts me to this day, but we don't need to go into that one.
No, if you don't want to, perhaps we shouldn't. Robert Jenrick was in the green room last night. I said hello, didn't ask him for a selfie. That would have been quite a cool selfie, I think, at the moment. That would have probably got me a few likes on X at least. Lost a lot of weight, Robert Jenrick. You've met him as well. He's quite a small-statured man. A lot of these people in politics tend to be, but he's lost a lot of weight.
He looks so different. Actually, I started to trust him just slightly less. And he's been having, I didn't have time to collate it all, but he's been having a debate with Zia Yusuf about, Zia Yusuf's been like, you said this about migrant hotels, you wanted more of them. Jemmick's been going, no, that was in a specific situation. We were trying to deal with an urgent problem, and I didn't want more of them. And then Zia's going, what about this about immigration? And there is a dodgy clip where Jemmick says, immigrants built the country. Then I'm thinking, what does Yusuf think he is? Why is he having a problem for immigrants? Has he not noticed? Parents came from Sri Lanka, I think. So it's just like, but one really weird thing, Paul, that's completely unfair of me. I looked at a picture the other day of Jemmick pre-Ozempic, basically, and he's kind of like squat and like it looks kind of like an egg. And I thought, I'm not sure about that bloke. But then the Ozempic bloke, I do like. So I'm like, that's kind of ridiculously superficial. But my friend, we were chatting yesterday on Substack Live. My friend Alex works with him and says he is who he says he is. So
yeah, the only reason it's Yusuf or anyone's attacking him on the right is because he's a threat. They're trying to delegitimize him, because within the Tory party, which is pretty much a dead donkey now, Robert Jenrick and maybe Chris Philp are phoenixes potentially. I think the only way the Tory party can be saved in the next 4 years is on that battle. But it feels to me like they're hanging on to the coattails now. So they're coattails of reform, essentially. And and anything independent on the right. Of course, there's other independents on the right. So, and that's why they're attacking him. And he seems to be doing a fairly good job, same as Chris Philp does. You and I have had this discussion lots of times on Dixon Cox, and we've shared our views on that. Most of the people watching this will be aware of it. Right. The battle lines have been drawn. This is where it's going to get won and lost. I said, do you know what? I said this to you on a previous episode, and it was Josh Harry was hosting Headliners, and I said, I believe that general election will be won and lost on migration. And he kind of laughed at that. He said, no, it won't be. It'll be the economy. Now, to some degree, he was right, because that general election wasn't won and lost on migration. But it should have been, and it is now as a result of it not being, I think.
Yeah, immigration was a top 3 issue for a long time, and now it's become number 1. All right. Well, if you're happy with that one, Paul, we'll move on to our second story. Are you happy with that? Anything else to add, or are we done?
No, I'm happy now. I just like to say how sinister that press conference was, and it's that gives you the backdrop and the context for why Lucy Connolly sits in prison still. It's because she, at that moment, was treated differently. Not that she was treated differently over time. She should have pleaded not guilty. She didn't have access to advice. And everybody, the whole system included, which was co-opted by our government, which is totally out of order, controlled that situation.
Mm-hmm. Just a reminder, Paul, this is live, so try not to swear. You just used a swear word a minute ago.
Did I?
So, yeah, it was Josh Howie. So, so let's crack on.
I've been trying really hard, and very good.
Let's crack. Someone in the chat just said a joke about it, so I thought I'd just cash in. So, how about this then? Let's move on to the flags. Flags. Don't know why I did that.
Health and safety, none there. Look at that.
Health and safety gone mad, mate. So it's 2 elderly people in Birmingham spotted attempting to take down the Union and St. George's flag lining our streets. Traitors. So this is quite interesting. This was your classic, some people said it's your classic boomers trying to take down the flag. And, it is very disappointing to see. I think we'll get to a stage where this kind of thing is frowned upon. This is my hope anyway. And that people just don't want to be seen doing that, because it's actually not a high status thing anymore. It's a low status thing. That's what we need to get to. But then beyond that, we need to get to a situation where people don't want to take down the flag because actually the country's good again. That would be my long-term dream, Paul. I don't know if maybe I'm a dreamer, but I think this is shocking that there are these people that just think, oh yeah, we'll take down the flag. You can just imagine the kind of Just Stop Oil type people they are. But should we also, maybe when we're here, we'll play this video, which is of a similar incident, and let's see if we can bring this up here. There you go. That is the council taking down.
Do you know where that was?
The flag of our nation. Actually, I'm not sure where that was. I should have found out. I'm trying to do everything. It's too much. Can you imagine that? The council taking down the flag. And I actually suddenly realized something, which is that this is kind of has something in common with the Confederate flag in America. I never heard anyone say this, but it suddenly came to me. I said the authorities see England as a nation that was conquered long ago and thus view the flag as something like the Confederate flag in the United States. And lots of people said to me, yeah, you're right then, Nick. And it is, because it's an arcane flag from a conquered people who are seen as kind of quasi-racist and not respectable. Isn't there some similarities? You've got the Confederate flag in America, the St. George's Cross. I'm not talking here about the Union Jack, which is still slightly more revered, although you've got to call it the Union flag for some reason, even though you don't have to, and that is nonsense. That's a midwit.
No, you just say that if you haven't got much else to say, really.
Yeah, but it's not even true. You can call it Union Jack in a naval or non-naval context. It was never true. But the St. George's Cross particularly, that is seen as like, and it also Hitchens was making me think this as well. He said, like, don't you get it? Britain hasn't existed. There was a revolution. Britain hasn't existed for decades. And although he says that kind of thing all the time, that really hit me. It's like, Britain hasn't existed. And I suddenly realized he's right. It's this weird Blair country. In my David Starkey interview, 240,000 views, Starkey says that Blair called Britain a new country. And he was like, we're really an ancient country. And they suddenly realized, oh, he's right. His country is this new country. Britain has been wiped out. It's like some kind of apocalyptic Planet of the Apes thing. It's like Remember, It's like, seeing the Statue of Liberty. It's like we kind of dig up Big Ben or something, and we like, it's our country. So like that Simpsons thing about Planet of the Apes. But that's where we are. We don't. It's not Britain. It's not England. So when they see that flag, like, oh, get rid of this, because otherwise, why would that ever happen in your own nation that a flag is taken down? Oh, because it's on a lamppost. Oh, sorry, sorry to mess up your lamppost. It's completely meaningless. I mean, it's our attitude and the authorities' attitude towards a flag, which is one of hatred, fear, and suspicion discussed.
Yeah. I asked the council, because there are councils in the UK that have quite happily, and sometimes due to fear, left other flags up, Palestinian flag, for instance, and obviously famously the Birmingham City Hall was lit up in the colours of both Bangladesh one week and India the next, celebrating their... One was celebrating the independence from one, and one was celebrating
Pakistan.
the victory.
Pakistan they did as well.
Sorry, it might have been Pakistan and Bangladesh, because India
Pakistan Independence Day, and then other flags you can put up. Sorry to interrupt. The Ukraine, and you can put up an LGBTQ++++ flag.
Yeah, to show you're a nonce.
Just wondering if we can say that live. I have no idea. Oh yeah, you didn't call anyone particularly it, and we're not on. I'm so trained. We're probably. I don't know what YouTube's rules are. We're so trained from the telly that every time that word was said, it was like I panicked now. I now panic, but it's not Ofcom, but it probably will be seen. Anyway, go on.
So the reason I mentioned the council is because there are councils, particularly with the Palestine flag, that have sometimes out of fear, as we now know, have struggled to pull it down, okay? And what they do with the Union Jack or the St. George's Cross is they kind of hide behind bureaucracy, and they say, oh, it's health and safety. It could fall off a lamppost and, trip a small child up who will fall under the wheels of a bus. I mean, the chances of that are minute, obviously. But it's the sort of thing they can hide behind, and people go, oh, okay. But they're not winning. I can tell you why they're not winning. I was in Canary Wharf yesterday, and... I was all over London yesterday, but at one point I was in Canary Wharf, and it was plastered with both flags, and that is not a place you expect to see that. And they're staying up, and they're up on lampposts. They've definitely been put up by regular people who live in the area. And the interesting juxtaposition of somewhere like Canary Wharf is it's where new and old worlds meet. There are still areas of Bermondsey and Canary Wharf and the Docklands around there where there are still old East Enders living there, the remnants of people who were brought up there by their parents who are now long dead, that saw a London change beyond recognition, and it will likely be those communities that are putting those flags up. They didn't seem to have been taken down. The people I were with said they've been there for a few days, so they don't seem to have been taken down. And I've seen it on my journey as well. I travel up and down to London from Hampshire, and I've seen this Raise the Flag campaign really growing, particularly on my particular journey on motorway bridges. But on the A3, which is a road I frequent a lot, over the last, I would say, 3 to 4 months, it was sporadic at first, one every now and again, Union Jack or St. George's Cross. Now virtually every bridge on the A3 has got one of those flags on it. And it's just grown exponentially over that time. And the more it happens and the more it stays up, the more it gets into the zeitgeist and the more it becomes acceptable. Because eventually it has to be accepted that this is the flag of our country. And there is nothing wrong with the flag of our country. It can represent and mean 1,000 different things, but ultimately one thing is true. It's the flag of our country. It represents pride in our country, in our nation, in the people that support this nation and its culture. There is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. In the same way, if you're in Pakistan or India or Bangladesh, you raise your flag. If you're in Russia, Ukraine, Estonia, Lithuania, and you raise your flag, there is nothing wrong with that. I've got a friend from Lithuania, and I asked her a couple of weeks ago, what is it if someone put the flag up in Vilnius, which happens to be the Lithuanian capital, and somebody took it down? I said, would that be considered an issue? It should be a huge issue. I mean, these are countries, particularly in that part of Europe, in the Balkan part of Europe, that were once occupied not that long ago by an actual oppressor, Russia. And they maintain huge, immeasurable amounts of pride in their country because of the way they stood up to the oppressor. We can have the same pride within Britain, or England, as we should call ourselves. This idea of Britain and the UK is still a very modern idea. It's not something that existed until the last century, maybe midway through the last century. As an entity, maybe if you were abroad, you might say you were from the area of Britain, but generally you were English or Scottish or Welsh or Irish or whatever it might be. Okay, there is nothing wrong with having pride in our nation, and this is all this is trying to instill. One of the byproducts is it pisses off some people, and I'm quite happy with that.
We'll get into that with a couple of videos. Yeah, there's two questions for me that have come from people I know. One is, should it be England, the St. George's Cross, or the Union Jack? And some say, look, it's time to just look at ourselves as separate nations. And others say, no, we had the great empire. This is a coming together of different groups, but all British. We should stick together. On the right, I've seen these debates. And the other thing I've seen is whether this is like fake and cringe. And Rory, not our producer, but Rory from Lotus Eat, has compared it to the pot banging thing during COVID. I felt it was completely different because I feel it is a genuine grassroots movement of people going, right, we're going to raise the flag because we're so sick of these migrant hotels and etc. and the open border, and they've just had enough, and any number of other things we cite every week. And I think it's a genuine movement. But I don't know what you think of that, Paul, but do you want to watch this video from this guy, Kehinde Andrews, and just get angry for a bit?
I believe it's a genuine movement, though, and it's not just one niche corner of our society either. It's a much broader part of our society that's now starting to support this.
I agree. I think it's a big deal, actually, or can become one. So Kehinde Andrews went on some TV show, one of these morning shows, and I don't know what they're all called these days. There's so many of them, and no one watches any of them. But
Morning Glory.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find the blooming. It's so hard to find the video. I can see one there. Hang on a second.
That's what our morning show would be called, isn't it? Dixon Cox Morning Glory.
That's a great idea. Morning Glory, yeah. And I said, for a balanced take on our national flag, let us go to the author of The Psychosis of Whiteness, which is.
I remember seeing this, thinking exactly the same thing. Yeah. Here we go. He'll say something impartial.
Yeah. Let's see if we can hear what he has to say on the issue of flags. Colonizing. They certainly haven't colonized that TV show. There's one white woman on it, but he also doesn't mention who ended slavery. Can we get a shout out for the people who ended it? Anyone shout out for England? And the other thing is, when he says Little England, I mean, he's talking about, he's being derogatory about a sort of archetypal salt of the earth English person, probably someone like my mum who, works, helps out the WI or whatever. Little England, although she probably wouldn't like that term. No one likes the term Little England or Middle Britain, but I think those people are salt of the earth people. So, and this idea, I don't know if we should quickly play this one as well while we're here, because this is the one that is even worse. I just queued this one up because he talks about what we should do instead. And he says, why don't we just get a new flag? Change the flag. I mean, can you imagine just centuries down the drain because this bloke who wrote a dumb book about whiteness, the psychosis of whiteness, totally normal, neutral, chilled out, reasonable book to write, no doubt, wants to just get rid of the flag. Wasn't that a bit the quiet part out loud, Paul?
Yeah, by the way, this is a man whose whole economy relies on this commercialization of victimhood. He has no job. His book sells no copies if the things he's saying no longer stand up to scrutiny or people are interested in. He has to perpetuate all of his theories, because if he doesn't, down the plug hole goes every penny of his earnings. So he's desperately clinging on here to adage after adage after adage. When they start with colonialism and slavery, you know what you're going to get. There's no surprise after that. The next three sentences are never a surprise to you. You know exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get this guy here, which very much looks like modern Britain from what I can see. It's particularly in London. Spilling this stuff, this bile out that somehow the men and women that are alive today are responsible for things that happened 300, 400, 500 years ago. Absolutely nonsensical. It makes no sense whatsoever. We owe nothing to anyone in the past. That is, that's a state. That's a matter of fact. We whether you like it or whether you don't, and I happen to like a lot of our history. I don't claim the victories. I don't wander around going, bloody hell, didn't I do well in Waterloo and Trafalgar? Nobody, but at the same time, I don't wander around going, well, I also ended slavery. It's like it's owning it
I
somehow.
do.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm like, guys, hey, don't even mention it. You're welcome.
I'm everything. We know I am. I've got Adolf Hitler tattooed here and Jeremy Corbyn tattooed here. Everyone knows I support everything. So, I'm everything this guy wants to be. What would the flag look like?
I'm every gammon. It's all in me.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what? There was a guy arrested at one of the migrant hotels protests, but just held a banner saying, I love bacon.
That's provocative.
It is provocative. Somebody messaged that to me.
Fucking provocative, that isn't it?
Fucking provocative.
We're not supposed to swear or say any of that, and we're not supposed to mention the mustache man, Paul. You always bring him up every week.
Do.
The obscure painter. This is YouTube. You're not on Rumble now. You're not on BitChute. You're not on Gab now, Paul.
But how do they do World War II live chats?
They say the obscure mustache man. It was the obscure
Austrian German heritage.
The obscure Austrian mustache painter man. I don't know how
I'll just rip it open and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Jeremy,
Like you say, you've got both. You've got Jezza on there as well. I love that's the furthest. You haven't got like Stalin. You just got the mustache man and Jeremy Corbyn. You haven't gone like Mao or Stalin. You've gone like you see those two as equals.
they to me hold very similar political views, and but this chap here, who we haven't seen for a little while, so he must be relieved. Must be thinking, "Crikey, I'm back on the telly. They're talking about the flag.
The flag's back. I'm back."
The reason he steers away from what would you change the flag to is because he doesn't have the answer. He's not built an industry on answers. He's built an industry on looking back and pointing and saying that was what was wrong. As soon as anyone, and all due respect to him, of which there is very little, if anyone's ever in his position asked what the solution is, they do not have it, because the solution that they want looks like the problem that they're portraying. They're essentially saying, we don't want it to look like this. We want it to look like that, which is exactly what he's explaining is the problem. So he's caught in this whole paradox the whole time. So he has no solution. He's talking nonsense. I forget the name of the chap he's debating with because I know him.
Raki.
Yeah. So I've met him a couple of times. Top guy, knows his stuff, is a Muslim, is a proud Muslim. I think he's from Leicester Way. And but he debates very well on this stuff, because one thing he does is I'm not saying this chap here, by the way, hasn't assimilated, because I believe he has. He looks more British than most of us. Okay, what he's forgetting is he is a product of being able to grow up in this country. Much more good than bad. A lot more good than bad. I'm not saying that he hasn't been the victim of anything, but a lot more good than bad.
I think looks more British than most of us are going a bit far on the most pale. I mean, I'm pale because I can't even go in the sun because I got skin cancer.
He won't like this though, but look at him. He's got a polo shirt on. He is one button away and a collar away.
Yeah, the polo from joining
from being outside a migrant hotel with a sign saying "I love bacon." That is the only thing that differentiates him.
The polo. You're absolutely right. No, it's just I just did my ancestry and I found out I was 95% British English, basically. 52% of it comes from the northwest. My people in the northwest, which is amazing because I grew up in Cumbria. I had a strong amount of Yorkshire in there, Lincolnshire, where my dad's from, and I had 5% Viking, which I knew was in there because of my fair hair. Now a bit grey, but I've always had fair hair, and I've always had, Paul, a desire to run through villages, marauding and killing all in my sight. So
pillaging mainly, pillaging. No grapes.
It's not the other thing; it's the pillage. Yeah, just the pillage for me. Yeah,
so I knew I was 70% Ghanaian. Who would have thought it, eh? But I think that's because my ancestors colonized Ghana.
Well, you just did that to get more media work, but you fail to realize that now on the right you can get media work as a straight right man, but you want to get on the BBC.
More so.
Should we have a quick look? Sorry to interrupt. I'm trying to be like Mr. Tabs as well as
well, you've got to hold it. I've just got to talk and try and make sure my internet maintains.
Mr. Producer. Some people will get that reference. So I thought we'd have a quick look at old, not old, but our friend Andrea, maybe, which is Andrea Jenkins, who I always think has a sort of...
Who I met on Sunday night.
Can you stop meeting everyone?
I did meet her Sunday night.
You just met everyone on this blooming thing. See, I'm not good at meeting people. I stand in the same building as them. I could have met so many people in my time at GB News, but I didn't meet any of them. I said hi to Suella. She seemed nice. I said hi to Priti Patel. She gave me a little wink, but then she also did that with our producer. So I was like, it's not an exclusive wink. And I said hi to these people, and that's it, really. And Jemmick was there. I didn't say anything to him. Met Andrew Tate, obviously, but no one else. Just the big boys. Who else did I not meet or meet at GB? I basically failed to meet everyone at GB.
Did you ever speak to Nigel when he was in Paddington?
I spoke to Nigel once, and I said to him, "Are you going to run?" He's like, "I'll be too old. I'll be too old." And I said, "No, Nigel, you can do it." This was before we realized that Nigel was going to go far left. He was like, "I'll be too old." I said, "No," and I encouraged him. It's my fault, but I didn't know he was going to go to the far left, did I? So
you didn't know.
Did you ever speak to Nigel?
I
also spoke to him at his birthday. Back when I still went to social events. I'd be banned from that now, obviously.
In my short conversation, I just kept referring to him as I was talking to him as Mr. Farage. I couldn't call him Nigel.
Weird.
I just kept going, well, yes, Mr. Farage, yes.
Why didn't you say anything? I think I did say Nigel, actually, but you don't really need to even say anything generally. I don't need to say your name repeatedly when I'm speaking to you. Sometimes.
No. I think
on the podcast I do to say that's your turn to speak.
Somebody said hello to him, and I was with them, and I said, "Oh, this is Paul. He does headliners." And he said, "Hi, Paul." And I went, "Hello, Mr. Farage." I think that's what happened. That was the extent of the conversation. But I didn't. I could have gone right, Nigel. I could have gone anything.
Well, he'll hate me now because I say all this bad stuff about before. Oh well. What are you going to do? A lot of people say you attack reform, and I say, look, I always say it as it is, and that is what I'll always do. It's not my best impression, but I can get the cadence.
Yeah, it is pretty.
Sometimes it gets incredibly slow like that, and he looks like. It's just a funny way. Anyway, probably my neighbours heard that one. Anyway, should we play Andrea with old Paul Mason, the Mackem? I just thought like. So this is I put raising the flag is great as it forces the far left nutters to admit they're triggered by the mere sight of our national symbol.
To have a voice, and don't forget a voice. I'm sick of being back of the queue. I think that's why.
If you get something called Operation Raise the Colours, that sounds very military. It sounds very aggressive. And why are they doing it? So if you want flags on your town halls, you can make your choices. Yeah. I mean, you'll make your choices. I'll probably make different choices to you on the flags. No. But if you can't go around just sticking what you like on a lamppost, and if you're going out and putting the flag of St. George, why are you doing it? I bet you there's an aggression in this campaign, which I think we should beware of.
But look at the aggression of the pro-Palestinian lobby.
Yeah, that's why it was. That's why they were taken down.
But do you know? I mean, look, when I was the MP for Morley, they had one of the largest St. George's celebration in the country. Even the BBC said, "Oh, is it the most patriotic town?" And it was actually amazing, that celebration, bringing everyone together and being proud to be English. And so I see nothing wrong with that. But to me, I think that this is an underlying protest movement because they feel that they're left out, forgotten about.
Migrants into Britain are amongst the most patriotic people in Britain. I saw that with the coronation. Look, I'm a Republican. It wasn't for me. Didn't take part, but I saw Bengalis and others taking part in that. Somebody's going around putting up these flags in this way, these crosses of St. George. You know it's crosses aggressive.
Of St. George. These crosses of St. George, aka the flag. These it makes it sound like the Ku Klux Klan. These crosses, they're holding aloft these crosses.
Never a problem when it's women's football, though, is it? And I know you don't believe in women's football.
No, it doesn't exist.
I do believe in women's football, but it's never.
Why are you such a lib, Paul? You've got this lib signaling on the podcast. I believe in it. I love it. It doesn't exist. I maintain.
But I was holding my
painter man tat. Yeah. But anyway, a few things that were ridiculous. One was the lamp post, just putting up on lamp posts as if like or someone said, who will think of the lamppost? And then he said, like, it's aggressive. It's like, we saw the thing before when they took it down. We're talking about a little flag put on a lamppost. It's exactly what you're picturing. It's like, it's not aggressive. It's not some epic thing. It's just like, here's the flag on the lamppost. It's aggressive. It's military. We've got to take it down. But at least he senses it's a threat. And the fact that we've sort of smoked him out like that so easily, it's like, Paul, you seem quite triggered by the national flag of the nation that you're in. And it seems a bit mental. And that's we just, if you want to talk about 4D chess, I mean, that's 1D chess. You've just forced you've just forced him to admit his position is ludicrous.
Obviously, the man that we worship the most, Eckhart Tolle, he says that the gift of life, dear, is essentially not what happens to you, but how you react to what happens to you. Okay, and we discuss this a lot on Dixon Cox Go Mental. Which is basically Nick and I talking about us being mental and our life and our existential crisis.
Available only on nickdixon.net.
Exactly. Please do subscribe. It's well worth it. It's an hour about him and I just talking about us and where it's all gone.
If you thought this was waffly, wait till you go. Carry on.
Yeah, if you want to learn about our personal lives, that's the place to go. But he's right in the sense that that's the only thing we can control in life is how we react to things that happen to us. Now, the way that Paul's reacting there tells us everything that we need to know. These are like little litmus tests, aren't they? Where you go around and you identify if this winds you up, okay, because it's innocent. Okay, this isn't like migrant hotels. And I was discussing this on the Late Edition last night. Statistically, at the very least, 1 in every 100 migrants within a illegal migrant hotel has or will commit an SA. Okay, so that's 1%. So it's not innocent. When you are fearful of that, you are fearful of something that's real. Okay, when the flag goes up, the flag itself can represent 1,000 things. In order to make it bad, you've got to continually identify it as negative. That's with him. That's not with everybody else. If 100 people in a room and 99 people of them go, I like that flag, that represents home to me, I'm patriotic for this country, I like what this country stands for, I like what this country's done for the world, I'd like this country to be better. And 99 people do that. That's what it represents. Paul stands there going, it's bad, everyone's racist, okay? That's just his projection. That doesn't mean that it's bad. So it's not comparable. It's apples and oranges when you talk about, migrant hotels and the flag. The Raise the Colour is about reintroducing patriotism into the zeitgeist again in a way that it just hasn't been allowed to for a very, very long time, unless it's something that the left agree with, like women's football. And then it's only a minority of people, once again, and always an oppressed, in their view, group of people, in this case, women, of which there are 51% of them. And it's not entirely true either. It's not entirely true at all. Everyone's oppressed. You can make yourself a victim. This is exactly why when I wrote a whimsical, satirical column for the Portsmouth Evening News, and I wrote that we're on a race to the bottom to find who's the most persecuted victim group, I got a sack.
Yes, probably because you said it was Gammons. But I had a strange moment there, Paul, when you said the way Paul's reacting there. And I suddenly thought, imagine if Paul had that his third person Paul that he referred to, it was just you in this kind of Fight Club dual persona way. And if you ever did something terrible, Paul got a bit out of control there, didn't he? He was a bit anti-migrant there. He shouldn't have gone down to those hotels. Paul got a bit naughty. It's like just you, Paul. I don't know who's I've never heard you say Paul before, I don't think. And
no, I don't normally. There aren't many other Pauls in my life, actually. There are a couple of other Pauls in my life. But just very rarely do I get to say. Yeah, Paul Mason, who, by the way, is again paid to be triggered by this stuff. That's, we live in an age of sensationalism, and God bless it, because it helps pay my mortgage. I get to have these conversations, or at least get to communicate about it.
Yeah, your whole life depends on woke stuff happening and silly lefty things happening.
It's an ecosystem of which I complain about, but also enjoy and rely on too. Do you know what though? I'd be quite happy for it to go away and for the status quo to be returned. Now, when I talk like this, somebody could clip it and say Paul Cox wants the UK to be white again. which is another podcast title I'm thinking about.
Yeah, that's that double paywall podcast.
Yeah.
That's the deep paywall
After
stuff.
dark, Paul After Dark, pants
Yeah.
down.
After
Don't know why I
dark.
added that.
After dark would be a strange title for that. Never dark.
Yeah, never dark.
Never dark with the people's gammon.
But that's not what I mean. Because, and when I was talking, it was interesting when I was talking about that chap earlier with the book and relying on victimhood. I wasn't really talking about his color. I was talking about the way he looked with the Specsavers glasses on, the cropped haircut, the polo shirt. The only thing that differentiated him, unfortunately for him, was the color of his skin. But fortunately for him, because that's what he's focused his whole career on. When you take away people's sexuality and the color of their skin, there should be a character left. And what you find often with these particular people is they don't have anything left because they've made it their entire identity. And it's boring. I don't care where you like to stick your bits. I don't really care what color of your skin is. If you come to this country, right, okay, on a dinghy illegally, you rip your passport up so no one knows where you come from, and then you take all of the luxuries that are offered to you. And by the way, there are an incredible amount of luxuries afforded to these people: hotels and mobile phones and shoes and clothes and feeding, PlayStation. All these things are true, by the way. This is not hyperbole. This is absolutely 100% cast iron true. The sort of things that a lot of working class people would give their right arm for, or work 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day just to earn. And this is where the problem lies. It's not the color of their skin. It's what they're given, what we have to pay for. And then they have, some of them come over here and commit the most heinous of crimes.
Yeah. And can I just say one thing quickly about the flags? Because we have here someone saying, Doodle Pimp says, as a Dane, I find the idea that you cannot show your national flag ridiculous. We raise the Danish flag on birthdays and during general celebrations. And you mentioned that, Paul, earlier, other nations finding it absurd. It's absurd in this country, or was until 10 minutes ago. When I grew up, we had a little restaurant and we lived there as well. And we used to put up the flag, the Union Jack it was, on all sorts of occasions, the royal wedding, the Jubilee, all these kind of type occasions. We'd put it up and it was like a massive flag. We'd hoist it in the flagpole. And that was normal. That was completely normal. My parents they followed politics. They certainly weren't right wing. They probably voted Lib Dem. And it was just like, we're putting up the flag. It was completely normal. It's very weird. Then the England flag, the St. George's Cross, became controversial because of its association with groups like the EDL. But the Union Jack being controversial, that's a new thing where like even the Union Jack is quasi-controversial. Now you've gone through the looking glass, because when Blair was around with Cool Britannia, the Union Jack was a big symbol of like, it was a lefty thing. It was like a general sort of thing. We didn't have such a stark division in the country. So everyone liked it basically. But now the St. George's Cross is gone, but also the Union Jack has gone. So which is a complete insanity. And that's when, it's gone very far, when instantly, okay, this group must be patriotic. They must have probably thoughts about immigration and so on. It is insane that it was at that level. But the other side has the Palestine flag. They sometimes have the LGBTQ flag. They sometimes have the Ukraine flag. They have the current thing flag. But now they have the Palestine flag. It's kind of the Palestine flag versus the St. George's Cross or the Union Jack. And this is the insanity we're in now. And someone had a very a little satirical thing here I just want to share, Paul, to cap off this. Well, actually, we've got a little bit more on the flag topic, but they had this. And it was, can you see that? It was,
I can.
All we have to do is paint the St. George's Cross inside potholes and the council will fix them within 24 hours. And this is a great piece of satire that brings together all the problems of not all the problems of this country, but a couple of them. 89,000 likes, 2.5 million views. And you get the idea. It's like, we are a country that can't fix the infrastructure, the basics. We're falling apart. We've got a problem with services. We've got a problem with potholes. You can't get anyone on the phone. People have said water will go for a day, and then there's no reservoirs being built for ages. So we've got problems with the water companies. We've got all sorts of. We're in danger of getting this infrastructure collapse before we get There's a kind of bets on at the moment. Will we have and no pun intended, because Professor David Betts talks about this, but we got bets on for will we have the civil war or the infrastructure collapse, and those are your kind of options. And this one kind of brings them together perfectly. It's like, right, if you want the infrastructure of the potholes fixed, and that's infrastructure in its most basic sense, it's a hole in the ground. You stick a St. George's Cross in there and they'll sort it. I mean, that is, and it shows it's a perfect meme, and it's a perfect meme of the oppressed. It's why the left can't meme famously, is because they have been running things. But this is this is a perfect language of the oppressed, which is the English in their own country that's falling apart.
Yeah, I thought this was absolutely fantastic. It embodied everything, didn't it? Immediately, as soon as I saw it, without reading anything associated with it, I got what was going to happen here, and it's marvelous. And we need to disassociate the flag with the far right, because it's not owned by the far right. It's as simple as that. It's not owned by the far right. And when I talk about the far right, I mean ethno-nationalists who would have nothing other than people of white Anglo-Saxon origin, and there, I'm sure there are some. And unfortunately, the way particularly the media are perpetuating the left's nauseating narcissism about this stuff is generating a sort of new generation of pseudo far right people who are adopting views that they perhaps wouldn't necessarily have done, on the basis that they are so fed up of what's happening. You're seeing the reaction. They're so fed up of what's happening. You're now seeing the reaction. You often see this, don't you? You see one guy going absolutely berserk. He's smashing up the place, and you think, oh, this guy's a nutter. What you don't know is that for the previous 6 years, his neighbour's been getting right on his tits, or his missus has been driving him mad. You're seeing the reaction, right? And what we're starting to see now is the reaction. And I'm always at pains to say this, but as long as we don't overreact and we just are persistent, then lots of good can come from this. Lots of good can come from this.
Well, yes, and we'll get into that when we get to the fact that the hotel has been shut in Epping.
Exactly.
But go on. I mean, carry on if you want. I was going to just add one more thing about flags. This is a very flag-heavy section.
I link this. All I would finish by saying is, you know, in the same way we can differentiate groups of people who happen to support the same thing, we need people to be patriotic. Nothing is successful. You imagine if you're building a business or a sports team and everybody within it was entirely divided by, you know, the Man United badge. They absolutely hated it, but they're playing for Man United. It would make no sense whatsoever. We are all from clans, whether we like it or not. Birds of a feather flock together. There are some things that unite us and some things that divide us. The flag can unite absolutely everybody. All you've got to do to be united by the flag is celebrate everything that's either English or British. And that can be its history, its future, our wrongs, our rights. It can be absolutely everything. Celebrate the fact you're here and this country can be great. Why would you not want the country to be great?
Well, yeah, because you hate it, as Kehinde Andrews outlined, because you hate it and see it as an oppressor and resent it. And
yeah, so you're trying to destruct it from the inside, which is exactly why there is this fight that's on at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I don't agree with everything you said, because you've been, as we know, you're far to the left of me, and you've been skirting too much towards, for my taste, British values, which doesn't exist, but still.
No, that's a Brownism, a Blair Brownism, as we discussed in a previous episode from about 2001. The 5 pillars didn't exist between the birth of Christ and Brown being Chancellor, and then all of a sudden we have these 5 pillars, right? They were designed specifically because Blair and Brown supported with devolution of Scotland and Wales. This all started under New Labour. All started under New Labour. New Labour, who I voted for in my idealistic youth. Okay, yeah, you're aware of this, Nick. So it shouldn't be too much of a shock. It probably will be a shock to too many people on here. But you know, and from it came, like, you know, Britpop and some of the great days. Okay, it was co-opted. But what they tried to do was dismantle Englishness, Welshness, Scottishness, particularly Englishness, which they saw as bad. So in order to do so, they created the Britain that we see now, and they created the values, the projected values of that Britain that we see now. So they had created this country that doesn't really exist and held it up and said, this is what this is what we're trying to achieve. And there's nobody who wants to achieve it. There's not enough people who want to achieve it. And you've still got people sat there going, and what was really interesting is in Scotland and Welsh's devolution, they were allowed to remain patriotic without any question. Any question.
I know. And not the English. I know.
And the English were not. So it's time the parity was restored.
I agree. And this was an interesting addition. Reform UK councillor seeks criminal damages against man who sprayed England flag on roundabout. Reform councillor Carl Perks of Worcestershire has told the BBC he will be pressing charges against the man who spray painted the roundabout. Are you disappointed by reform? Basil asks. So, yeah, it's a real story. Reform council slams England flag roundabout vandals and warns against putting flags up. And basically, you've got the idea. And now, of course, I suppose you can't really be as a councillor saying, yeah, get stuck in, lads, go crazy. You know, you can if you're a Labour councillor like Ricky Jones, of course, as we found out. But the only thing about this, though, is you don't have to incite violence, but there might be a territory between that and this, which is like, you will take down these evil flags. I mean, it's a strange tone for reform to be taking, and people are calling it the flagtivist movement. And he's so Perks, the councillor. Council said, well, I cannot condone acts of vandalism costing taxpayers money. Yeah, I mean, okay. Blah, de blah. I don't know. It's just an interesting extra point on the flags. Anything else on the flags before we move on to the hotels finally, Paul? We've done a decent chunk. I don't know how we're going to do our extra show. It's going to have to be called Dixon Cox Extended was my idea, and we somehow do it separately. Because normally we do this, we do an extra story behind the paywall, but there's no way to logistically do that.
I preferred Engorged.
Yes, different options. So what we'll do is we'll do one more little story, and then we'll take anyone's questions if they've left the chat, which they haven't currently, so that's going to be easy. So maybe we'll have a look at this lastly, which is court rules asylum seekers must be moved from hotel. And this was a big win. So the Epping hotel, you've heard a lot about the Bell Hotel in Epping, is actually going to be shut down. And I thought this was really interesting. It was done on a planning reason, was what the KC kind of went with. I love this sentence. The Home Office has warned the decision would substantially impact its ability to house asylum seekers in hotels across the UK. It's like, you don't say. It's like, oh, good. Oh, well, we definitely won't do that then. I just love that they've told us how to defeat them. Yeah, and I say F the Home Office on this one, because it's disgusting what they're doing, putting these people around the country. I mean, I said they're like a pimp, really, on Twitter, and that's what they are, because you put these people around the country. We know they commit these assaults, so the more you think about it, the more disgusting it is. But it was quite interesting. They looked at the planning as the reason. So here we go. Representing the council, Philip Coppell, KC, agreed some protests have unfortunately been attended by violence and disorder. But he said the Somani hotels did not advise or notify the local planning authority. So that was a key thing. And he told the court it was no more a hotel than a borstal was to a young offender. So a few things happened. So I saw Dr. Anna Lutfi talk about this, the barrister, a little bit on The Spectator. And one thing is that they didn't give time, and they didn't, what the judge called, give time to ventilate the process and say, what is this actually going to be used for? It was done in a kind of clandestine way from what it was basically turned into, as we've seen so many times, it was turned into this asylum hotel, but they hadn't said this is what we're going to use it for. There'd been no fair, an open process where they say, yeah, this is what we're going to use it for. And that seems to be the angle they've gone. Now, I'm not a legal expert and I haven't had time to research it massively, but that's broadly how they managed to win this. They used planning because the idea was that they had, as this says, sidestep scrutiny. So they used this planning sort of, what would you say, kind of this slack way that they'd gone about the planning permission as a kind of way of exposing that. So interesting though, Paul, because if this now happens, as I've seen all kinds of papers predicting now, that this can happen across the country, and this is a loophole, and this is a way to attack the government on this. So here's the Telegraph. Labour asylum plans in turmoil after court orders migrant hotel closure. And the Guardian had an almost identical headline. So even the Guardian admitting that this is going to be a serious problem for the government. So the court sided with Epping Forest District Council after the authority claimed that placing asylum seekers in the Bell Hotel was a clear breach of planning permission because it was no longer being used as a hotel. So they can't get away with it. And what's so strange is the government that wants to get away. It's like, it makes the government seem so kind of borderline criminal, doesn't it? I mean, you've got this government saying we want to place these people in migrant hotels everywhere, and obviously going to cause massive disruption, especially when they commit crimes and horrible crimes, which they have been, and they intimidate people. And you've got people saying now, telling their kids don't talk to a migrant. Which, I mean, imagine that we used to have like public safety, public information films. Now we've got saying like the government's put people here who are dangerous, so don't even talk to them. Suddenly the government is the dangerous enemy, and the local councils are acting against them. This is the kind of thing that happens in a declining country. You get local councils, local organizations acting separate from the main authority. This is the kind of thing people talk about states seceding in the United States. And I'll stop talking in a minute. I was just trying to outline the issue. And there was one further thing I can't remember, but I'll remember it in a minute. So what do you think, Paul?
Yeah, you reminded me, obviously, of the Stranger Danger campaign. And this is like with the migrant hotels. It's like the Stranger Danger campaign that is sponsored by the government, where the government have put strangers next to playgrounds. They've gone, yeah. Are you a flasher? Yes. Well, we've got a hotel right next to a playground. If you're looking for small boys and girls to show your willy to, we know just the place for you to stay.
Maybe they will eventually do a campaign actually and go, beware of migrants in this area. They can often dangerous. Like, yeah, because you put them here. I mean, that would be insane.
That would be, party political broadcast would be that, yeah. And then the opposite one would be, yes, because you put it here, you idiot. So what's fascinating about this is there's always this nuance, isn't there, that catches them out. It essentially was illegal to put these migrant hotels because they are no longer hotels. They're just migrant camps. They are what were hotels are now used to house illegal migrants that have come into the country, broken into the country. Let's not be afraid to say it. They broke into the country illegally, and now as taxpayers, we're funding them to stay in relative luxury. There's nothing to put them off. Whatever. And I would say maybe if you wanted to put it as a percentage, 1%, maybe 2% of those chaps maybe seeking real asylum from danger in anywhere. The rest of them are just economical migrants looking for a better life. And when
you say economical, it makes it sound like they're sort of budgeting well or something. Economic migrants coming over for money. It's just funny when you said economical. It made me think that they were like
they've had a choice.
Good with money.
They've gone on moneysaver.com and moneysupermarket.com and say, well, where would you go this summer? Well, if you get a boat from France to the UK, you can get yourself 6 years in a 4-bedroom council house with new shoes, new clothes.
And they do that. They do those videos saying what mugs we are. They do those videos, don't they?
Yeah, of course they do.
What I was going to just say was the HMOs thing. I just wanted to address because people have said this, and I did think this when I tweeted about it. It's like, yes, okay, we don't want them just going into HMOs and housing instead of hotels. Of course, that's not a win. People are like, well, they'll just go straight into that. No, that's the next battle. You've got to stop because they shouldn't be there in the first place. The reality is they, of course, shouldn't be here. So the government's like, we'll put them in hotels. And then some people say, oh, this will be worse. They'll just go into these HMOs. It's like, yeah, well, that's not great either. And we don't want them scattered around more. They have to go. Here's
the conundrum, isn't it?
They got to
go. For every victory, like the Bell Hotel, there is a new problem. So pop the champagne. Well done to the mums of Epping. Okay, congratulations. Well done to the people of Waterlooville, where I'm from, where they managed, and Suella Braverman, who managed to stop migrant hotel / camp put into Waterlooville. But it creates a new problem. The problem is, where do these people go? There are some migrant hotels housing 300 to 400 men. 300 to 400. That means statistically there are 3 to 4 to 5 SAs, potential SAs, within that building.
I'm glad you're saying essays because we're on YouTube. Although the way you said it there, some people might think they're writing sort of little thought pieces on the Constitution and pit the younger. But of course, they're assaults that Paul's talking about. They're not. It's not a 500 word. It's not a 1,200 word piece. Yeah.
You wouldn't believe where they've put me. They've put me right next.
Yeah. I went out on the street today to try and intimidate some young girls, and they didn't. They looked at me and said, "Get out of our country." I didn't. I felt bad inside. Yes. Day 3 in the migrant hotel.
Dear Diary, as you know, I do like prepubescents. They've managed to put me next to a primary school of very, very delicious prepubescents. They don't seem to like that I enjoy it.
Axel, day 3, and Axel's feeling pretty sad to be in a country that he hates and doesn't understand.
Following his 4th wank out of the window, Axel's gone looking to see the deal from the supermarket.
Day 3, and Axel has used all his food stamps on betting and has lost on the horses because he didn't understand what he was doing. Paul Mason is on his side. Lewis Goodall says he's the hero.
So even Axel's starting to wonder why this hotel is particularly masculine. Everybody says they've got wife and children. None of them appear to. Day
5, Axel, the asylum seeker who's one of 58 fighting age men who hate Britain, is feeling sad. Comes to the diary room. Yeah.
Just harking back to Axel and his friend go to play in the play park with some small girls. They play on the seesaw and the roundabout. The girls are 6 years old. Axel and his friend are 37. They don't know what's wrong with this.
I run in. I go to people they don't like. I can't do any accent that won't get me trouble here. They don't. They don't like me. The girls shout and kick me in shin. Axel is day 7, and Axel's sick of this country because they keep kicking him in the shin when he hangs around the school.
It's becoming very difficult for Axel to commit an essay.
Yeah. Day 8, Axel's feeling frustrated because he can't behave like he does in his home country. He wishes he'd never come over and says Britain is actually shit. I'm getting carried away with this whole... someone said day 6, the government has voted them more money. Day 14, and they've had a boost from the government who sent more money into the house, into the hotel. Yeah. Turns out it's Paul Mason doing the voiceover the whole time. Sorry. Rupert Lowe PM says Restore Britain policy is detained. Hang on, where's Rupert Lowe PM? He said stop moaning, start doing. Join Restore Britain. I don't think that's actually Rupert Lowe, but it would be amazing if he was in there. Just to stop moaning, start doing, join Restore Britain. I'd love if that was actual Rupert Lowe. I think we finished the topics pretty much, Paul. I think it ended when you're on your Big Brother riff, you might have ended the.
When you and I start acting out scenes, we know that.
Yeah, they're usually the best bits, to be honest. But I suddenly realized I couldn't go all the way because any accent I did was going to get me like. That's still the final threshold, doing an accent of a foreigner, Paul, unless it's Trump, of course. Let's look at. Go on. No, let's look at the super chats. Someone has said. So Martin Reddin gives us a super sticker. There's no chat. We don't even have to read anything out, which is amazing. Lady Sarcastro says, enjoying the live stream. Thank you, gents. And they're the only people, Paul. So that means we've got 14 quid.
Thank you, though.
1.5 hours work divided by take off. You get 70% of it from YouTube. So that's £9.80. Dividing 2 is £4.90. So that's how much you're earning for this 1.5 hours work, Paul, that you just put in. And I also did at least an hour of preparation with all the bloody links. So for me, doing even
we're
worse.
Donating 80% of our funds so that Axel can get a new wanking mitt. So a lot of this is going to Axel.
So this probably wasn't worth doing. We're going to have to put it back behind the paywall next week. These people didn't deserve it.
Wasn't worth doing.
Didn't deserve it.
Hour 3, Nick says this probably wasn't worth doing.
I've turned into the Nick Fuentes of the chats come in. He's like, these people are idiots. In my he just destroys his chat every time. I'm not doing that, but I am saying it was objectively futile. No, it's an interesting experiment. It's quite hard to do. What I found was it was actually hard to relax as much because I've got to do all this blooming. I haven't got a Jamie. I'm like, Jamie, could you pull that up? Just put the mic up to your mouth. Like, Jamie, could you pull that up? Dude, is that a chimp? Like, I can't do the Rogan. I don't have a Jamie. We need Rory on here. Rory, can you pull that up? That's what we need. We need our guy. Like, Jamie, can you pull up that orangutan fishing again?
It's nice to see so many people watching and in the chat now.
Oh, yeah. I like Paul's always positive. He's always got the positive. I'm always the negative. Great stream. Can tell that both Paul and Nick are holding a lot back. Yeah, because I don't really know the rules on the old YouTubes. I don't know the rules. I know the rules on Ofcom on telly because we were drilled about them constantly. And the rules on Ofcom on the telly are you can't say anything. But the rules here are less clear. Mark Walters, I watched your Jordan Peterson impression today. It was excellent. Well, that depends what you mean by excellent and depends what you mean by was and it. I haven't done it for ages. Don't do it anymore. I do a passable Trump. I used to do it at professional level, Jordan Peterson. and I'm building, I don't know, I do a sort of passable Starmer. I don't know. I'll always just have a crack. I'll have a crack. I had a crack at Enoch Powell on one of the streams that got taken down, not because of that. We must be literally mad. Well, then I'll just have to be self-satisfied, won't I? It's sort of it's an old Birmingham, Wolverhampton mixed with the RP that everyone spoke in those days. We must be literally mad. Anyway, anything you want to say, Paul?
No, just thanks to all the rashers out there. Keep supporting the bacon.
I don't know if there's any rashers here. Someone says professional duo. All right. I guess that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, we do normally about an hour and a half anyway, don't we? So it's about the same.
We do. Yeah. It's been fun. It's my first time going live, like it's 1990s.
Yeah,
children's BBC.
I'm addicted to live streams, even though they are a lot of work and there's no reason for them. I mean, I did a 3-hour one today on Academic Agents channel. Now we've just done this. We should at least plug nickdixon.net and anything you want to plug. Go to nickdixon.net. You get the full interview I've just done with David Starkey, which has 240,000 views on YouTube. You get the full version of all my interviews with Carl Benjamin and Lord Frost and Charlie Downs and all these kind of people. I don't whoever you like, they're on there. Ben Habib, and all the full versions of my podcast with Paul. This has been completely free, but normally we do like the last half an hour paywalled, and we do that whole extra podcast Paul mentioned before. Dixon Cox Go Mental, and what else? There's my chat group. I keep needing to do more. We need to do more on. We've got like 600 paid subscribers, so if you want to join that and help me live, because GB's ending. I basically am from December. I'm completely broke, and the kids won't get Christmas presents.
Those kids, eh?
Paul, anything you want to send people to?
Yeah, just follow at Paul Cox Comedy wherever you like. Come and follow me. Basically, this stuff just regularly, and obviously, subscribe to Nick. Look, the future's bright. The future is red, white, and blue. So let's keep it going.
Yeah. Well, people seem to have liked the show, so thank you very much. It's quite hard to do, but I need to. Someone said I'll be a rasher and a dick's head. Thank you, hi ho, come in. Yeah, I came up with you've got the rashes. I came up with the dick's heads. I was like, Fuentes has the Groypers, Taylor Swift has the Swifties, two very similar figures. And those people, what's similar about those fan bases is they will absolutely go for you. If you criticize one of those people, they will annihilate you. They will dox you. They will destroy you. It's absolutely brutal. I was like, right, I need people like that. And I thought, what's a good name? And I was coming up with different names. Dick's Squad. Someone just said Dick's Heads, and it's like, yes, of course, the Dick's Heads.
Yeah, that works.
And they will attack you. They will attack you brutally if you diss the dicks. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for watching. This will go up somewhere. I guess it'll be up on YouTube, but then we've also got to put it up on Substack, which is complicated. And anyway, these are inside thoughts. We'll work out all that stuff. What else is coming up? I'll have another interview out on Monday. Yeah, loads of stuff. Constantly.
Tons going on. You're like a content machine. It's brutal. Just content machine. He's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. And we'll leave you on that. nickdixon.net, at Paul Cox Comedy. God bless. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.